People love cosmetics. It is a multi-billion-dollar industry. They make us look and feel and smell better, but these chemicals they're easy to access and make. You can make them cheaply. In the US, there's very, very little regulation on skincare. And people don't realize that. So many people say this phrase to me that it's sold at XYZ box store, then it must be safe. It couldn't go on the shelf if it wasn't safe. That is completely untrue.
Emilie, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Josh.
It's been a long time coming. I've been excited about this. You know, I don't wear makeup or have a lot of skincare products myself. However, my woman, my partner, and so many people that listen to the show, this episode is so much deeper than skin. You know, it starts with skin. People know you as the co-founder of Toups Co. And tell people just how you even got into this world of skincare. This was something that we all know the epidermis is the largest. It is literally the largest organ that we have on our entire body, in the entire body. And people just don't think about this, Emilie. They don't think about what they put on their skin. It's literally drinking whatever we're putting on our skin. So give us the quick story, not the deep one, just the quick story of how you came into this world of Toups Co.
Yeah, well, someone would have told us 10 years ago that we would be running a skincare company. I feel like, what? It definitely wasn't the trajectory that we were on. But when we had our first daughter and she had severe eczema, you know, it had us looking for something else, other answers, and not being satisfied with the answers that we were getting. So, you know, like a concerned mother will do, I just dove deep into researching, and I had to know, like, there's got to be another way. She had, you know, cracking and bleeding skin, and we had gone to the doctor. We did the traditional routes, steroids, petroleum creams, and all the things, and it just wasn't working. And we weren't satisfied with that. And, you know, my husband and I multiple times looked at each other, and there was like, there's got to be something else that we can do. And through my research, I found tallow and just started making some products for her. She not only had eczema, but a lot of allergies, like topical allergies. And so, you know, we started with the basics, just tallow on her skin, and it was just incredible. It's helping with the inflammation. And I started to make those products. People loved them. I gave them away, friends and family. And that's just the beginning of how we got started, which is it was just a God thing. It was there when, you know, we filled a need when we saw it, and that's how we got started.
It's wild because I think about how many people on the path of healing or of making themselves well or their family well, it starts with their own journey. It starts with something where they had to actually figure it out themselves. They had to really get down in the weeds and be like, okay, I'm experiencing something. I'm not finding the answers in the traditional system. How old was it was your daughter, correct, that was dealing with the issues? How old was she when these started to come to fruition, these skin issues?
Oh, she had them like from birth, and it took until she was almost 2 for me to even start to question, like, there's got to be something else we can do. A cousin of mine, we were at some event, and I was holding her and I was feeding her, you know, boxed rice cereal. And she looked at me, and not in a condemning way and at all, but was like, maybe she's having issues like with what you're feeding her. And I kid you not, like a light bulb went off, because we were doing the standard American life and diet and everything else. And I went home and really did some research, threw away a lot of things that she was eating. And it really just took someone whispering the one thing, like, maybe it's what she's eating, for me to realize that not only do I have to worry about what is going on her skin, but, you know, our entire lifestyle is promoting either health or not.
What were you doing then compared to what you're doing now? Like, what was a day in the life of Emilie back then when she was having the skin issues compared to now?
So I was working for my parents. They own a construction company, and my husband was a paramedic. He worked kind of in the medical field, and that was our life. We had one child, and I was driving back and forth to my parents' house and just not questioning the narrative in on anything really. And my mom is an herbalist and definitely more hippie in her views. But for some reason, I just was like, I kind of thought that what she knew or what she believed was just her and her little hippie herbally ways.
Wow, that's so interesting how we, in our own experiences and our own hardships, we search for solutions, and then maybe we go back to some information that we kind of poo-pooed or that we dismissed before. It sounds like that was the case with your mom.
Yeah.
Is she still involved in that world now?
Oh, absolutely. 100%. Our entire family now. But it took, just having issues and having like a pain point in my own life to do the research for myself. Another example of that is like we had our first child in the hospital and we did all of the things the traditional hospital way. And after that, just having a less than great experience. And my mom had home births, at home. And I was like, I'm not doing that. I'm going to do like what society says. And it took time to just undo and relearn lots of things and, to decide what was what's actual health and what's not.
A lot of people would be like, wait, tallow, doesn't that come from beef? Why would you put that on your skin? I mean, you've served people across the planet with Toups Co Organics. So if people don't know the benefits of tallow, let's start there. Then we'll unpack some of the ways that these things that I didn't even know, by the way, before we met, before I got introduced to you, all the fragrances and the parabens and a bunch of chemicals that I can barely pronounce are in these skincare products. And I don't think moms and dads know. I just literally don't think they know. I think it's just something where it's like out of sight, out of mind. Before we get into that, tallow. Is tallow for everyone? I mean, is it literally something that everyone can put on their skin? And what is the benefit of that? Because that's at the core of Toups is the tallow, yes?
Right. So tallow is rendered beef fat. And often people will come up to me and say, what's tallow? And I was like, do you have any idea at all? And kind of feel them out before I'm like, it is rendered beef fat. But it is 98% bioidentical to our own skin's oils, our own sebum. And so that makes it incredibly nourishing. It's full of fat soluble vitamins. And before the Industrial Revolution, where we could extract plant oils, the only oils available were animal fats, and then things like olive oil and maybe like coconut oil that one are shelf stable and two easily extracted from the plant. So everyone used tallow and lard, and it was very common, and it's ancestral skincare. And so it's incredibly nourishing. It really is good for all skin types because it's so close. And I will mention that is grass-fed tallow, not from cows, pumped full of who knows what and all these toxins and in confinement and just not unhealthy animals, but from regenerative farms, pasture raised and grass fed. And it's just such a beautiful thing. It's like, we call it liquid gold. It's beautiful and golden, and we render the tallow ourselves. And it's just kind of the core of Toups Co. And it's what made such an impact in our lives and on our daughter that we continue to render it ourselves because it's so important to me that it be the best quality and very stable and like rendered at low temperatures, and just really protecting and honoring that as something that's really important.
Is your mom in favor of using the cows in a very beautiful way for skincare? Because some people, they feel indifferent about that. And some people have a very strong opinion about using animal products for skincare.
Oh, no,
How does your mom feel about that?
She is 100% for it. I think that's probably all she uses. And she requests mason jars full, not just what we sell.
That's so cool. Is there a specific, you mentioned the sebum, and for people that don't know, maybe just unpack what sebum is. And this is for men and women, by the way.
Yes, it's just the oil that our skin makes on its own. And so like the human body regulates and makes oil to nourish and keep our skin protected. It's kind of the layer on top of our epidermis that protects it from everything else. And we are constantly washing that away with soaps that are detergents and just stripping it off and really replacing it and keeping our skin as a barrier to everything else in life is actually pretty important. Our skin has microbiome, and it's what is our protective layer. So our skin has all these bacteria and even yeast on it. And when in a healthy balance creates, healthy, vibrant skin. And when that's thrown off, then we're having like rashes or irritation or dry skin and all these things. People have so many skin issues, and just having a healthy microbiome on our skin and nourishing it with something that is protective can solve a lot of those problems.
So people might see the word natural, quote, quote, and we'll talk about this later in the podcast. The terms organic and natural, there's a lot of wiggle in there. And there's also a lot of regulations that I didn't know about before we chatted. So I want to go right to the core issue here. What's happening with the fragrances and the parabens, and I believe it's called Phenoxyethanol, the fake natural stuff.
Yeah.
There's about 3 things in skincare that in my research and our conversations, I was really surprised by, and they're in almost everything. So let's talk about those. And if you had to guess, what is the percentage of men and women? Obviously women wear more makeup and use more skincare than men, but men do as well. What is the percentage of people that are probably using, quote, natural things that have a ton of fragrances, parabens, and the nasty chemicals in it, if you had to guess?
Oh, almost everyone. When I run into people and, they're asking me about skincare, they, are questioning what I know, and they're just interested just a little. And I ask them what are they using? And it's always some kind of detergent, something full of fragrances and parabens. And most people, their eyes start to open when they have their own pain points. So they're having an issue themselves. And that's why they most often reach out to me and ask me questions. And I try to just make it as simple as possible, but just explaining that the average woman uses 12 products a day, and they, on average, 168 chemicals every morning, which is an incredible amount. And there is other research that has found up to 200 chemicals in umbilical cord blood. And wow. So that means that what we're putting on our skin, on the exterior, we think we're not eating it, but we're putting on our skin on exterior, is not only crossing into our bloodstream, but it can also cross into like a developing fetus. And it's just so important that we realize that every aspect of our life affects us in a way that we might not feel right away. So we smelled a fragrance, or we used a soap, or we used some kind of deodorant, and tomorrow I feel fine. But the progression over years of using a product daily, day after day, and more than one product a day, just compounds. And a lot of those chemicals are very difficult to detox from our body, so they continue to build up in our systems and our. So I want to tell you about the main 3. We can talk about the main 3 chemicals that I think are probably the top offenders in products. And obviously, the first one is fragrance, because fragrance is just a word that hides this concoction of up to 4,000 chemicals, and they can hide it behind the word fragrance because of the Fair Packaging and Labeling Act, which just protects trade secrets. And so you can make your own fragrance out of a long list of toxic chemicals and then call it just the word fragrance on the package, because your trade secret of your scent, what you created, is protected under that law. And so people see the word fragrance, it's something they can pronounce, they recognize it, and they just assume that it's just a smell.
I'm having a brain melt with you right now. It's the same thing with food, where they say natural flavors.
Right.
It's the same thing, right?
Exactly the same.
The GRAS list, generally regarded as safe, where the FDA has like thousands of food chemicals. I had no idea. So the same thing applies to skin and to makeup.
Yes.
It's skincare.
And, it's actually very sad, because it takes education on your part to understand that. It's not always general knowledge, even though when you've been in the natural health space for so long, sometimes you assume that it is general knowledge, and people know that until you speak with people and they don't know. And lots of these chemicals are hormone disruptors. They throw our hormones out of balance, and so many people are dealing with that. I would 4 out of 5 women probably have a hormone imbalance, and they're trying to correct it. And when your hormones are out of balance, we see mood swings and anxiety and weight gain, loss of
Mm.
sleep and skin issues. And, some of these chemicals even contribute to cancer. And we're seeing a rise in all of these issues in men and in women. And, they don't know why. And there aren't any answers out there in the traditional medical space.
So then why are these chemicals allowed to be put in there? And let's really let it rip here, because we've never done a show this deep into the epidermis, which it's so crazy. I'm like, I don't know why I haven't thought of it before. It's the largest organ. It's bigger than our liver. It's bigger than our brain. Skin, epidermis. It is the biggest thing that we can do to take in moisture and to relieve moisture as well. Yet we just don't think about it. It's just not something that we think about. So then why are we drinking these fragrances and parabens and all these things? Why are they even allowed to be there in the first place?
Well, people love cosmetics. It is a multi-billion-dollar industry. They make us look and feel and smell better. But these chemicals they're easy to access and make. You can make them cheaply. And real ingredients and the smell from real plants take time and energy, and they're more expensive. And so people want cheap, and companies want to create as cheap as possible just for profit. And so, in the US, there's very, very little regulation on skincare, and people don't realize that. So many people say this phrase to me, that it's sold at XYZ box store, then it must be safe because it's sold there, or this store wouldn't sell it if it
even at Whole Foods.
Yeah, even at Whole Foods, they wouldn't sell it. It couldn't go on the shelf if it wasn't safe, and that is completely untrue, as you can tell just from research. All of these lawsuits and all these companies and things, they can create a product. A lab or a manufacturer can make a product, and sometimes there's testing done internally in the inside of the company, and sometimes there's not. But they can put that on the shelf, and it can be sold without ever being tested. And the only time that they'll go and test it, or it'll be regulated by any kind of government entity, is if there's a certain amount of complaints against the product. And that's a two-edged sword. It's good and it's bad. Because that means that we have to be educated on what we buy and what we consume off the store shelf. And so there's tons of, pro legislation out there. People want more legislation. They want us to ban more ingredients and have more insight and oversight over cosmetics. And I actually totally disagree with that, because that just makes it to where we have less options. So these small companies, myself included, they have more hoops to jump through and more money to spend to be, compliant with a government entity or the FDA.
Yeah, I mean, let's talk about the elephants in the room, and I say plural. There's a revolving door that no one needs to have a conspiracy theory mindset to understand, between the FDA, the USDA, the pharmaceutical company, the agriculture institution that we have here, the big ag, and even big food. All of these companies, the executives, if you just do a quick search online, it's not like you have to go further than the first page. They all trade executives. So somebody that works at Monsanto can then work for the FDA, and then somebody that works for USDA then can work for a pharmaceutical company. I mean, it's wild, it's crazy. And it leads us to this really uncomfortable part of the conversation, and that is follow the money. Because if you really want to take care of yourself, you have to not be duped by marketing that tells you something is good for you when it's really not good for you at all. And I used to wear cologne back in the day. We haven't talked about this. I used to wear cologne, and I was like, oh, it's no big deal. I'm just spraying it on my t-shirt. No, I'm breathing in that vapor all day long. So now I use an organic, non-toxic cologne. Maybe it doesn't have the same smell as like a Louis Vuitton or whatever, but I don't care. Like I don't want to be breathing that in all day. So when we look at the financial interests that are driving really these chemicals to be in the products, like you said, it's because they're cheaper, and it's because they can be done at scale. Can you share some of your research and maybe just some of your own personal anecdotal thoughts about some of the things that are happening in your space in skincare? It's not just makeup. This is skincare also for men and women. What do you see? Like, what do you see in the landscape that makes you frustrated, sad, that makes you feel like you really need to shout from the rooftops and tell people this shouldn't be here?
Well, most skincare companies are owned, by gigantic conglomerates. So there are multiple different brands, and most of them have the same corporate owner. And so, they're manufacturing in the same places, and they're using the same ingredients that they've used forever. And they shroud the research and make it look like they're safe. And so whenever, especially speaking with scientists and things, they see, well, this study says that this is proven safe. But then there's another study mirrored right behind it, maybe done in Europe or in another country, that says it's actually not safe. And, so recently there was the Olaplex lawsuit. And there was an ingredient that I believe was a part of the fragrance that is banned in Europe and in other countries that they were using. And it was, causes infertility and reproductive organ problems. And they were using this. They were using those ingredients knowingly, in putting them in the formulations, knowing that they cause harm in like certain doses, but it was something that they wanted to use. And, of course, their response to these lawsuits we are removing the product, that ingredient. We were unaware of the studies that show, et cetera, et cetera. And that's just not true. These companies do massive research, and they have top leading scientists, making these formulations. They aren't unaware. And so it's just about the money. It's just about how they can get these products out. They market them to especially young people. Olaplex is very popular in a younger crowd. And these women they're growing up, and their reproductive system is still maturing. They're going through, their teens and into their 20s, constantly using a product that's harming them. And it just blows my mind that the marketing is so strong and so great that I've run into so many people, and they're like, well, I actually know that it's not the best, but I'm using it because it works better. And I'm like, does it actually work better? And the answer is always no. It's just coating the hair or the skin or anything in some kind of petroleum
It's a placebo.
product.
It's a placebo where they've been told so many times on Instagram, Facebook, television, cable, Super Bowl ads that it is better. So then the subconscious just goes, oh yeah, it's better. Who cares if it's toxic? I mean, that makes me sad. And
what I really try to do is provide education around the amazing ingredients, cold pressed, beautiful, organic, nurturing ingredients from the earth that, they work 1,000 times better. And so there just needs to be more education on reading labels. And even it is difficult because even in the natural space, there are tons of people that are trying to, get into this billion-dollar industry, and they're saying things like natural, organic ingredients, et cetera, et cetera. And it takes time and effort to recognize the ingredients and be able to read a label and say no, or say, this actually does sound good.
Yeah. Wow, there's so much to unpack here. So the first thing is, and I really want to treat this with respect, but also seriousness, because gosh, the more I see on YouTube and on media, there is this just disregard for the core family unit, for the safety, sanctity, and health of the core family unit. There's also, from what you've shared and from what we're going to link in the show notes here, it's a top class action lawsuit that's titled Oil-Free Skincare Lawsuits Pile Up. It's in the show notes. There's some of the brands that are like the biggest brands in the world, and they're linked in this report. And it's this quote of oil-free skincare products that have a ton of these really, really harmful additives inside of them. And I wonder if the scientists at the companies know that they're harmful, and the CEOs at the company knows that they're harmful. And basically everyone knows they're harmful, but they're just turning the cheek to it. Don't you think that that's willfully attacking the health of young women specifically?
Oh, absolutely. I definitely see just in the world in general, just this war on family, this war on health, especially young people. I have two sisters who are both in their 20s, and they grew up knowing what is healthy and what's not, lots of education, especially because I had already had children and I was living a more natural lifestyle in my mom. But seeing these things like from different influencers and just bombarded with this advertising that, these chemicals are better, they were being poisoned by buying these products. And so then they would turn to me and be like, well, what's the alternative? And there's always an alternative. There's so many amazing skincare companies out there that are doing the opposite of this, and just, using beautiful ingredients and just from the earth and the whole plants and these pure extracted oils. And they work just as good. Just maybe they don't have the marketing that these massive conglomerates have.
Yeah. And maybe for a lot of people too, they want to emulate the movie star they're seeing, or they want to be accepted.
So,
I mean,
yeah.
you guys know how it is. Like when you grow up, you want to be accepted. It's like a core part of adolescence. You want acceptance. So if your movie star or if your favorite speaker or whoever is like wearing the makeup or using the products, even if they're bad for you, you're going to do it. So like what part of this really sets you on fire actually, or makes you want to serve even deeper with Toups Co? What part of this do you see where it's a clear attack, or what do you make of this? Like if this is going to continue to go on, how do we make sense of this, and what do we do about this?
I see so many young women and people my age just really struggling with their health. They're struggling with hormones. They're struggling with autoimmune issues and things. And I just want them to realize, to understand, to be educated enough to know what a paraben is. Parabens are preservatives in cosmetics. They've been, preservatives since the 20s, and being able to read what they are, know what they are, and then make better choices, or just have enough information to even know that they should read the label. Turn the package around on everything that you buy and say, maybe let me read the ingredient list on this. Or sometimes the ingredient list is not even listed, or it's, a sticker behind something. Or if you go on someone's website and you're trying to read their ingredient list and they're not there, you have to email them to ask them what the ingredients are. That's red flags. Those are red flags. And just educating this younger population they're being bombarded daily with so many products. Education around reading the labels and understanding that just because our favorite influencer uses this, that, or that product doesn't mean that they're probably not even using it. The influencer's probably not even using the actual product. They're just being paid to use it.
Exactly. Prime offender being the Kardashians, by the way, which let's talk about this. So, and I want to let you wrap up, but we're definitely going to talk about the Kardashian thing.
It just kind of rubs me rough that the Kardashians, who own a skincare brand full of toxic chemicals, are in DC, and I think they were there in like 2018, lobbying for regulation on skincare companies. And I at first I kind of even thought like maybe it's a great thing. We need to ban some of these ingredients. But the legislation wasn't even on banning specific ingredients. It was just on oversight on manufacturers and skincare companies. And I was like, okay, so, we had kind of gone through some hoops of doing some organic certifications and realizing the amount of paperwork and money that it takes to get a skincare product organic certified just kind of opened my eyes to what all of these certifications mean, what kind of government oversight is involved in it, which is not really a lot. And so being pro regulation on these skincare companies is just going to make all of the skincare companies you see at a Walmart, Target, they will be able to jump through the hoops or figure out a way around it. And then everyone else that's left, your great choices that are these small indie brands that are using great ingredients, they won't be able to jump through the hoops. And so then they'll disappear and you'll have less and less choice. And so, it's an act, which we like to, it makes us happier. It evokes a feeling of security when you see some kind of influencer, celebrity doing something that looks like it's good. But it actually, there's always an alternative motive.
And we're in, I feel like we're in the best of times, we're in the worst of times when it comes to almost everything in health and wellness, period. Whether you look at food, and we're talking about skincare and cosmetics today. The good thing is that there is natural products out there. And the more that we can have conversations like this, the more that moms that are dealing with skin issues or their children are dealing with skin issues can actually let that go, can heal and move forward. But there is this mental construct, Emilie, and the mental construct is, as long as it doesn't bother me right now, then it probably won't bother me ever. But it's simply not true. It's almost like if we had an hourglass and there was grains of sand. So every time you put the cosmetics or the skincare products on that have the harmful parabens or the chemicals, it might just be a few grains of sand. But over the course of like 3 to 5 years, you could fill an entire scope with sand. You could fill an entire hourglass with sand. And I think that's what I really want people to understand from this. It's not about just like buying a cool skincare brand, although like I would definitely buy the brand just because I like to have animal products on my skin because it's the exact same sebum as my skin. That's pretty badass. But in a different conversation, there's the darker side where if the Kardashians are selling stuff and they're really just in it for the money, and we know they are, what do you think it is about the human psyche? Or what do you think it is about just humanity in general where we're easily duped in that way? Why are we so duped in that way? Why do we keep giving these people essentially our money, our choice?
We just want something that makes us look good and feel good. We want to be better. And that's why the cosmetic industry is so large. It's more often that we want to look prettier, feel better than we actually want our skin to be better. And also, I think especially in hair care, our diet is so poor that on the exterior, we're seeing the results of years and years of a poor diet, which is unhealthy hair, nails, and unhealthy skin. And so people, they want to look like what they see on TV. And these people have, hair extensions and all, fake everything. And so we see this version of a human that's not even real. What does a real human look like? And they are, they have imperfections, and that's just the way that we were made. But even deeper than that is just, we have a society that is more unhealthy than we've seen in ever. And we want to fix it, and we want a quick fix for it. And then we have products that are promising a quick fix. And so we buy them because that's what we want. We want shiny, beautiful, long hair, and we want, beautiful nails and flawless skin. And there's all these products on the market that can give that illusion to us. And so we buy them because they're marketed for that. And the real, it's a Band-Aid. The real root cause is, something in our body, a hormone deficiency or imbalance, or a mineral deficiency or imbalance. And if we can clean up our diet and use skincare that feeds our skin and nourishes our body, then we'll see the true version of health, which is, beauty that comes from within. And it's very difficult to know that if someone doesn't tell you, because the media says the exact opposite of it, and there's huge multi-billion-dollar industry and stores promoted to just giving us fake products that give us the illusion of what we think beauty really is.
It's even some of these companies like the Rodan and Fields, these massive company that are experiencing lawsuits and legal issues as well. I mean, we could sit here, and we're not going to, but we could sit here and we could list lawsuit after lawsuit after lawsuit that are happening every single year. Especially, I noticed there was more lawsuits in 2020 and 2021 than ever before. And I think it's because people were at home trying to feel better about themselves, buying all these makeup, buying all these products. And it's like, you guys, we need to take a deep breath and just remember, like you were saying, Emilie, like the human body has natural imperfections. Whether you're a man or woman, when you're buying skincare products or cosmetics at all, you're not trying to be perfect. You're just trying to feel and look your best. And I think that's a really big demarcation that we need to talk about here. This striving for perfection, it unravels into all phases of society. How kids and teenagers and young adults treat each other. And there's really like this moral fiber that's decaying because of this projected image of perfection that these companies make billions and billions of dollars off of. Can you speak on that?
Yeah, they make so much money on selling products that make us look more beautiful, make us look like everyone else, make us feel like we look like what we see on television. And I think there's a skewed view of what real beauty is. Real beauty is health. People have beautiful, vibrant skin and, clear eyes and can think clearly and feel good from real health. And real health comes from within, and it's a food and mind and body connection all together.
And spiritual.
Yes. And spiritual for sure. And so when I meet people who have true health, I find that incredibly beautiful. I have friends that take care of themselves, their mind and their body, and their, spirituality, and the food that they eat is all healthy. They radiate beauty. And, when people come to me and they're struggling, it's never one thing. It's never just the skincare they're using or the food they're eating or, their state of mind or the state of their spirituality. It's all of these things because they're all connected, because we are incredible beings that are, every part of our body is connected. And so it takes wanting to know the information first. And because someone can come to you and ask you the questions, they're not feeling well, or they want this, and they're looking for that, and you can give them the answer, but unless they want to really know the answer, they don't listen, and they can't accept it. They have to almost research it on their own and then come to me. And then, or they have to have like a pain point that they're really driven to want to know the information. Once their eyes are opened and they're driven to, they desire the information, then they can take it in, and those areas just all start to fix themselves, and the blocks start to stack, in a neat row, instead of just having it kind of falling apart.
Sometimes we wait until we're really sick to change, or really
and that was
sick
the
to
case
buy
for
things.
myself. We were, especially as a parent with your first child, and you're seeing them with, eczema and bleeding, itching and crying. And it was just, I was crying and she was crying. And it was like a very low point where I was like, I've got to figure this out. I've got to get somewhere else. Was it not for that, maybe I would still be on the same, in the same lifestyle. I don't know. And so while it was a difficult thing to go through, it changed our life for the better. So I'm very thankful for that. And she has vibrant skin and health now. And I'm just so thankful that I went through that pain to get to where we are now. And telling that story and just explaining to people sometimes will open their eyes without them having to experience their own pain. But I do feel with so many mothers that email me and they send me photos of their children, and it hits me very personally. And so, all I can do is share with them the truth and really nourishing, health ingredients and tallow and all of these fat soluble vitamins, and give that to them and let them see, but I always do. I own a skincare company, so I don't just like throw tallow at them and say, this is the answer to that. But I always just kind of put a note in there about, what is their diet, or, what's the atmosphere that they're living in, and just to spark a light bulb for someone to do more research for themselves.
Yes. Well, I love it because I'm going to be 42 this year. And I had my first facial recently, and she was like, what skincare products do you use? And I was like, none. I don't use any skincare product. So for the men out there, and I know that this conversation has been, let's be honest, primarily for the women, because women, that's the majority of the cosmetics and the beauty industry is women. But for the men listening, how do they make sense of this too? Like, are there a few products for men that they should definitely be putting on their skin on a daily basis? Let's go to the practical.
Okay. So, I always start with deodorant, because deodorant can be one of the most toxic products that we're using. We put it on every day. They might forget to wash their face, or might not put on makeup, but people are putting on their deodorant on a daily basis. And so these aluminum deodorants that are full of fragrance and scents. I mean, Axe and Old Spice and all this, stuff. I even got my dad, a faithful, probably like for 20 years, used Old Spice to switch out his deodorant. I literally went in the bathroom and I was like, do a switch, Dad, use this. But they work, natural products work just as well. And so the tallow is amazing for men's face. So my husband, it's so funny because he will talk with his friends and he's like switched them over to using like this pure soap bar that he uses to wash his hair and his body. And then he puts the tallow on after he shaves and on his neck. And he's like, man, you gotta use this. But because it's so nourishing and other men try it, they're like, wow, man, I should have been using this.
Yeah, I love it. I'm going to try the balsam fir and cedarwood. You have an extra strength deodorant too, right? For
I do.
People that really stank. Okay. So for all the people that work out there. And so the deodorant's a big one because I've heard of aluminum and gosh, it's probably been 20 years since I've used an aluminum deodorant. I just simply don't use them. What else when it comes to, so deodorant and then the balm on the face for men?
The tallow balm.
The tallow balm. So those are like the big two, the deodorant and the tallow balm.
And then men use shaving cream often, every day sometimes. And so like a soap bar with a brush and like the old school shave soap would replace that. And then you're putting the tallow on top of that and just protecting your skin, nourishing your face and your beard if you have one, and just taking care of your face in a way that men don't normally do. My husband is, he'll be 42 this year also. And he spent a tour in Iraq and just had so much sun damage on his face from just the heat and the sun on a daily basis for a really long time. And I'm telling you that tallow has like changed the texture of his face on the side where he just had so much sun damage. And so now that's like his selling point to other men. It's like, man, you got to try this tallow balm. I know it sounds different.
Yeah, men want to look good too.
Yeah,
we want to look good too. So okay. So then let's shift to the ladies. So what are like the 2 or 3 core products for women when it comes to hydration, care, cleanliness of the skin?
So our top seller is mascara in our makeup line, and mascara has so many toxins in it. So many people email me on a daily basis and say I can't use any mascara. They make my eyelids swell. They're especially like waterproof mascaras. There are no natural waterproof mascaras. So if you're using one and it says natural on it, flip it around or find the box and read the ingredients on that, because I can almost guarantee you that it's not natural. So mascara is a big one. And just the tallow. I mean, tallow is so amazing and it's so simple that it seems like there must be something else. People are used to like multi-regimens of like multi-products, and each product does something different. And really that's just to sell you more products. But our main, you want to cleanse the face. If you have dry skin, you don't want to use a soap. So you'll use an oil cleanser, a toner, tallow. And it seems very basic and simple, but it's the best thing for our skin. We're never stripping the oils off our skin. We're always replenishing them. Anytime you wash your face, we're moisturizing and keeping that barrier on our face. And it brings kind of a natural, healthy glow.
So it's 3 or 4 products instead of 12. I think earlier in the podcast, you said it was 12 products with like 150 plus chemicals. We're talking about like 3 or 4 products that are just 3 or 4 products. Really
basic. You need deodorant, wash your face, and moisturize.
Okay, this is incredible. Like I'll tell you, it's not something that I've been passionate about, but I am passionate about wellness. And I can learn from you. And this is why I love podcasting. And this is why every single person right now, go to joshtrent.com/Toups. And it's TOUPS. And you just use the code Josh. Emilie, thank you for the discount, by the way. You gave us 15% off, which is incredible. We know that you're a small company, so we totally respect the value that you're giving people and then your generosity. That's joshtrent.com/TOUPS. Use the code Josh. But before we say goodbye, I want to ask you a big question, and it's about parenting, because my son's 8 months old, and we've had conversations about having another child. And you mentioned earlier in the podcast that you took the traditional route when you went to the hospital. what shifted for you there? Like what shifted based on your first experience where you're like, I'm never doing this again, and this is my path moving forward, as a parent here? A lot of parents listen to the show.
A huge question. But it all boils down to just as simple as possible, and going to the hospital and being induced, and then having, I was at the brink of a C-section, and then they use a forceps, and it was just a very unnatural experience. Mm-hmm. And our oldest has some issues that none of our other kids have. And it was because I had a standard American pregnancy and delivery and all of these things. And I just researched, and I'm very much of the know better, do better. And so, I have 4 children. I had 3 of them at home and 1 at a hospital, and I will never go back, because if we're talking about kids, just the experience of having your baby at home and it just being peaceful and quiet, and it was just an amazing experience. We did different because we knew better and we learned more. And, for us, it was the perfect decision. And it just was, I was healthy and strong and was able to do what my body was made to do.
I love the way you said that, you take a different path because of now something new that I love the way that you put that.
And I have no problem changing my opinion. And, I can't say that in 5 years, I'll feel exactly the same about everything that I know, because I know more. And the more I learn, might change my mind.
Mm-hmm. I reserve the right, we all do, to change our mind when we get new information that brings us closer to what I believe is the truth. And I think the truth is that all is love, because all is God. And then if you look behind that, you have to ask yourself, okay, if there's all these distractions in our world, skincare and makeup being one of them, media being another, and then what we quote should and should not do as far as birthing and parenthood and all these things, what does your spirituality look like? Like, what does it look like for you to lead your family and really to protect your family? I mean, that's really what this is. You're protecting your family from not just toxic chemicals, but toxic thinking and toxic way of being.
Yeah. Well, we homeschool our 4 kids, and my husband and I are very much involved in their day-to-day in their life. We run this business, so we're so blessed and so able to be home, which not every family has that privilege. But because we do, we are very intentional of making sure that they are exposed just to life and to vibrancy, and knowing that there's so many things that they can do that maybe being in a traditional school setting, they wouldn't believe that they could. And, obviously the Lord has directed our path from the very beginning of my husband and I's marriage. We'll be married 13 years this year. We have 4 very beautiful children. And, every decision that we make, in prayer and in just together. Every decision we make together. We pray about it, and our path has been directed, just by the Lord. And I feel very blessed to be in the situation that we are. We live in America, and I make sure that my kids know that we are blessed to live in this country, and that there are other people living in other countries right now, the war with Russia and Ukraine, and they are struggling and they're going through a lot of difficulty, and just recognizing that we're incredibly blessed to be in the situation.
We really are. And I think about this element of protection, like a great parent or just a parent of yourself. You can be a parent of children. You can also just be a parent of the inner child that's living in all of us. Every single human being has a little boy and a little girl inside. So for me, the way that I protect myself and my family from toxic chemicals, toxic people, toxic things, is I just stay curious. I just keep asking questions like, hey, what result does this bring? Or let me look at the truth of this matter. Or let me see behind the curtain that everyone else is believing. Do you have a North Star for you and your family? Like, do you have a family mantra? Do you have something where no matter what, you guys will move in this direction because of this reason?
Well, we always ask questions. So if someone says, you should do this, this is amazing. My husband will be like, well, why is that so amazing? Or let me find out for myself, the truth behind that. And so we just we take everything with a grain of salt, and nothing is matter of fact until it's what is great for us. And that's in every, aspect of our life. We kind of do things not on the mainstream, different from most people. And that, lots of people say, or make comments and say, the Toups, they're crazy. They live on this farm. They do everything so different. Like, why would you do that? And
that's good.
It is so funny because, we milk cows and we have chickens and we farm and we homeschool and we, own our own business and all these things, just not the mainstream. And it's because we've asked questions, stay curious, like you say, and just there's not one size that fits all. Everyone has a different path, and what's good for me might not be good for you.
It's interesting. As we round out and say goodbye, I'll share this. Like, I used to think that wellness was 4 things: mental, physical, emotional, and spiritual. And now I know that wellness is actually, it's moved for me from a box, Emilie, to a pentagon, because that 5th part of wellness is financial health. And if we look at the way that we tend to our garden, like financially, mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, all of these things need constant attention at all times. And so in my opinion, and I'm curious how you feel about this, when we look at the financial, where we spend our money, it might seem cheaper or, quote, easier to go to McDonald's. It might seem cheaper or easier to buy skincare that's like $5 cheaper, but poisons your skin. How do you make sense of that? And how do you speak about that, perceived easiness versus long-term cost?
Well, I don't do anything the easy way. I mean, we have to, walk a half an acre to just collect eggs to eat breakfast, because when we spend more money on something because it's better for us or healthier, at the same time, we're not spending money on other things that people might. We choose to spend our money in a very intentional way. And so when people say, oh, well, you eat organic and that's expensive, or you buy, clean skincare and that is more expensive. Well, we also don't indulge in, we don't eat out and we don't do other things, or we choose to spend our money in ways that benefit us. And so it's just about what your priorities are. And our priorities might look different than somebody else, but we prioritize health over many other things. And if that means that we can't do other things, like maybe go on vacation, and do other, we take that money and we spend it to invest in our family for long-term health and long-term happiness.
That's the kind of bank account that I like. Emilie, this has been great. I've really enjoyed this. We went in a few directions that I was, pleasantly surprised we went in. There's a ton more to talk about. We're talking more about this at the post right below this video, wherever you're watching. You can go to joshtrent.com/TOUPS. The code is Josh. Thank you, Emilie, for the 15% off. It's amazing. And this is for the men and women too. As we say goodbye, how would you define where we are in the world for yourself, for your family, for us? What does it mean to live well, especially in this modern day and age with so many distractions? How would you define wellness? What does wellness mean to you?
Wellness is a state of mind. And even living in like this modern earth, we have more choices and more availability than we have ever had before. So while we have more distractions, we also have more choice. And there are more and more products and things that we can buy, or easy way outs available to us now than there's ever been before. If you wanted clean skincare, you might have to make it yourself in your kitchen. Or if you wanted organic pastured pork, then you had to raise your own pig. But now there are so many choices, and I think we live in an incredible day and age. And it's amazing, and I'm blessed. We're all blessed to live in 2022.
We are. It's the year of looking at ourselves, right? 2022. I'm looking at me. I'm looking at you. We're looking at each other this year. It's like the year of inventory. So Emilie, thank you for coming. Where can people learn more about you specifically? Are you on IG, or do you want them to just go to toupsandco.com? Like, how do they get involved in the conversation outside of just buying your products?
So if you want to follow me personally, I am on Instagram. It's just Emilie.Toups, just me. And I'll share a little more of our day-to-day and things that we do and believe. And then obviously on Toups Co, there's a contact form on there. People can email me, and I try my best to get back to those emails as quickly as possible. But I really do enjoy giving as much information as I can when people have questions.
Well, I feel like this was a huge bevy of information. So until Emilie and I see you guys again soon, we're both wishing you love and wellness. We'll talk to you then.